You've been living inside a lie so familiar you stopped questioning it. A lie that was handed to you before you could think for yourself. It told you to be patient, to be grateful, to stay in line, keep your head down, and wait for your moment. But deep down, you know the truth. Your moment was never coming. Not because you're unworthy, but because you were trained to believe someone else had to give it to you. Right now, somebody with half your discipline, half your intelligence, half your potential is living a life you treat like a fantasy. They receive respect without asking for it. They walk into rooms you avoid. They take opportunities that were never meant for them. And it's not luck, it's not privilege, it's not destiny. It's because they stopped waiting. You feel that sting in your chest, that pressure, that envy, that quiet frustration you pretend is motivation. It's not weakness. It's a message, a signal that you're not where you belong, a signal that something inside you is suffocating under the version of you the world demanded you play. This is where that version dies.
You weren't failing because you lacked potential. You were failing because you were following rules that were never designed to help you win. While you were being taught to be polite, patient, and agreeable, others were learning how power actually works. They weren't told to wait their turn. They learned how to move without permission. They weren't trained to be likable. They were trained to be effective. And while you were worried about being too much, they were busy becoming untouchable. You were raised to believe that goodness leads to opportunity. But in reality, clarity does. Presence does. Self-direction does. The world doesn't reward the quiet child who waits with their hand raised. It rewards the one who steps forward before anyone else even realizes the moment is available. You followed the script. They rewrote theirs. And now you're here wondering why your effort doesn't match your results. It's not you. It's the operating system you were conditioned to trust. But once you learn the real rules, confidence without approval, movement without permission, identity without apology, everything starts to shift, not just outside you, but inside. You stop playing small because you finally see the cage.
There's a moment, quiet, uncomfortable, impossible to ignore, when you realize your life isn't stuck because of fate, luck, or timing. It's stuck because you've been waiting for something that was never coming. And once that truth hits you, it feels like the floor beneath your life shifts. It usually happens at night, when the world is quiet and you can finally hear your own thoughts. When you scroll through other people's victories and feel that familiar ache in your chest. Not envy, recognition. Recognition that you're capable of more, but you've been moving like someone who isn't. In that moment, something inside you whispers, "This can't be it. This can't be all you're meant for." And for the first time, you don't push the thought away. You don't rationalize it. You don't numb it. You don't argue with it. You feel it. Because deep down, you've known it your whole life. You weren't built for the version of yourself you've been living. You were simply taught to inhabit a smaller shape, to think smaller, want smaller, act smaller. But once you recognize the cage, something shifts. You stop blaming the world. You stop blaming circumstances. You start noticing the places where you've been shrinking without realizing it. That's the beginning, not of change, but of awareness. And awareness is the spark that burns the old version of you down.
Most people don't ruin their chances because they lack talent. They ruin them because they can't stop talking. They talk to prove they belong. They talk to hide their insecurity. They talk because silence feels like exposure. But here's the truth. The more you talk, the more power you give away. I learned this sitting in a room full of people who intimidated me. People who carried themselves with the kind of confidence that makes a room adjust around them. I thought I had to earn my place by speaking. So I filled every pause, every gap, every breath with explanations, opinions, nervous jokes, anything to prove I wasn't out of my depth. But the most powerful person in the room barely spoke at all. He didn't fight for attention. He didn't rush to fill silence. He didn't compete with anyone's voice. He simply waited. And the room waited with him. That's when I understood silence is not weakness. Silence is pressure. Silence is presence. Silence is psychological gravity. When you stop talking, people start revealing their insecurities, their intentions, their fears. They expose themselves while you stay unreadable. And unreadable people are dangerous because no one knows how to approach them, challenge them, or manipulate them. Speak less, and your words gain weight. Speak selectively, and people listen differently. Speak with intention, and you control the room without raising your voice. Your silence isn't empty, it's leverage.
Silence does something that talking never will. It makes people reveal themselves. When you stop rushing to fill every pause, something almost unsettling begins to happen. People start talking more. They start justifying things you didn't question. They start confessing insecurities you never asked about. Silence turns you into a mirror, and most people can't handle their own reflection. The truth is simple. People fear silence because silence exposes them. They project their doubts into it. They hear their own thoughts inside it. They feel pressure to perform, explain, impress, anything to escape it. And while they scramble to fill the void, you get to see who they really are. Their motives, their fears, their blind spots. That's why silence is such a powerful weapon. Not because it intimidates others, but because it reveals others. And the one who reveals less always holds the advantage. When you speak only with intention, your words carry weight. When you stay quiet, people assume you're thinking more deeply than you are. When you stop reacting, you become unpredictable. And unpredictable people command respect without demanding it. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is pressure. Silence is authority without effort. Use it deliberately and you stop competing for attention. Use it consistently and you start controlling the room without moving a muscle.
Most people let their emotions drag them through life like a leash around their neck. They think feeling something automatically makes it true. They mistake emotional intensity for accuracy. But here's the truth. Your emotions are real, but they are not reliable. They're reactions, not instructions. I learned this the day someone I trusted used my private struggles as entertainment. They twisted my vulnerability into a story for people whose respect I cared about. I felt that sharp burn in my chest, the kind that climbs your throat and demands a reaction. Every part of me wanted to defend myself, to argue, to expose their lies, but I didn't. Not because I wasn't hurt, but because I finally understood that reacting emotionally gives your enemy the script they want. So I stayed calm. And my silence did what my anger never could. It exposed them, not me. That's when it clicked. Emotional control is not about being cold. It's about being in command. When you react instantly, you hand over power. When you observe first, you reclaim it. Your feelings are signals, not orders. They tell you what to pay attention to, not what to do next. The moment you stop treating emotions as facts, You become someone who cannot be manipulated, provoked, or predicted. You become someone dangerous in the best way possible. Most people are open books, and that's exactly why they're easy to manipulate. They mistake transparency for honesty and vulnerability for connection. They overshare their dreams, their fears, their plans, their doubts, and then wonder why people use those things against them. Here's the truth. What others know about you is leverage they can use on you. I used to explain everything: why I wanted something, why I made a decision, what I feared, what I hoped for. I thought openness made me authentic, but all it did was make me predictable. Then one day it hit me. The people who seemed untouchable weren't the loudest or the friendliest. They were the most unreadable. You couldn't tell what they were thinking. You couldn't tell what mattered to them. You couldn't tell where they were headed. Mystery isn't distance. Mystery is protection. Mystery is authority. Mystery is value. The less people know, the more they have to respect what they see. When you limit access to your inner world, your external results become the only thing people can judge you by. And that creates power. Not noise, not explanations. Power. Your life is not a public document. It's classified information. And access should be earned, not assumed. Most people walk into conversations trying to be interesting. Powerful people walk in trying to understand. Every interaction is an exchange of information, but the weak give more than they receive. They reveal their frustrations, their goals, their insecurities, their intentions, without realizing they're handing out a roadmap to their own mind. Meanwhile, the people who control rooms aren't talking, they're gathering, observing, listening. Because people will always tell you who they are, not through their answers, but through what they choose to mention first, what they repeat, what they defend, what they avoid. When you stop oversharing and start paying attention, conversations turn into maps. You begin to notice patterns. Who is motivated by fear? Who is driven by validation? Who craves approval? Who seeks control? And once you see those patterns, you stop being surprised by people's behavior. You expect it. That's the real advantage. You're never blindsided. When you talk less and observe more, you gain leverage without ever lifting a finger. People think you're quiet, but you're not. You're gathering data. Data that later becomes strategy. Let others reveal themselves. Your silence will collect more than your words ever could.
Most people try to survive by being likable. They think being agreeable makes them safe. They think being easy to work with makes them untouchable. But here's the truth. Likability makes you replaceable. Competence makes you essential. For years, I tried to be the nice one, helpful, accommodating, never difficult. I thought if people liked me, they would open doors for me. But while I was polishing my personality, someone else was sharpening their skills. Someone less pleasant, less patient, less agreeable, but twice as competent, passed me every time. That's when I learned the brutal rule nobody teaches you. You don't get power by being liked, you get power by being necessary. When your results are undeniable, people tolerate your boundaries. They respect your time. They fear losing you. They stop managing you and start depending on you. Becoming irreplaceable isn't about being perfect. It's about being so good at something that removing you creates more problems than keeping you. Learn faster, study deeper, develop mastery where others are lazy.
Solve problems before they appear. Competence is leverage. Competence is protection. Competence is the foundation of all power. Be so skilled they can't replace you, and you won't need to ask for respect. It will show up on its own.
When you're average, everything becomes a negotiation. Your salary, your boundaries, your time, your respect. You have to ask, argue, justify, explain, because nothing about you creates pressure. Nothing about you creates consequences. But when you're exceptional, the entire dynamic flips. Competence changes the conversation. It turns, "Can I have this?" into, "Here's what it costs to lose me." It turns, "Please respect my boundaries," into, "My schedule is not open for debate." It turns, "I hope they notice me," into, "They can't function without me." People don't respect you because they're kind. They respect you because you're valuable, because losing you is expensive. Competence gives you leverage without ever raising your voice. It lets you say no without fear. It lets you demand standards without guilt. It lets you walk away without hesitation. And the strangest part, once you reach this level, people stop questioning your decisions. They start trusting them, even when they don't fully understand them. Because competence communicates what words never can. You're not here to fit in. You're here to raise the standard. If you want freedom, stop negotiating for it. Become the person whose value makes negotiation unnecessary.
There are people who don't misunderstand you because you're unclear. They misunderstand you because it benefits them. They've already decided who you are, and no amount of logic, proof, or explanation will change their mind. Their version of you protects their ego. It keeps them comfortable. It keeps you small. I learned this the hard way after making a decision everyone around me doubted. I justified it. I presented my plans. I explained my reasoning over and over, thinking clarity would earn their support. It didn't, because they were never confused. They were committed to their judgment. Some people need you to fail so they can feel right about their own limitations. Some need you to stay predictable so they don't have to confront their own stagnation. Some fear your growth because it exposes what they refuse to become. And that's why explaining yourself is a trap. You're not offering clarity, you're offering your energy. You're not gaining understanding, you're giving them influence. You're not defending your choices, you're validating their doubts. Here's the truth. The people who truly support you don't need a full explanation. And the people who demand one don't deserve it. You don't owe anyone a presentation about your path. Move in silence. Let your results speak. Let your progress be the proof. Most people live like they're on trial. Every decision becomes a defense. Every dream becomes a justification. Every boundary becomes an argument they feel obligated to win. But here's the truth you've avoided for too long. Your life is not a courtroom, and you are not required to defend your existence. The moment you start presenting evidence, explaining why you want more, why you're changing, why you're outgrowing people, you step into a position of weakness. You give others the illusion that their approval is part of your process. It isn't. You'll notice something. The people who demand explanations never change their minds anyway. They just want access to your confidence. They want the satisfaction of knowing they can sway you. They want to feel taller by making you shrink.
Stop feeding them. Your path is not a debate. Your evolution is not a group decision. You don't need to convince anyone of your direction because the right direction doesn't require permission, only movement. The people meant to stay will understand your silence. The people meant to go will be offended by it. Either way, both outcomes free you. You gain power the minute you stop proving yourself and start choosing yourself. Most people don't build lives. They build dependencies. Their stability depends on a boss. Their confidence depends on validation. Their purpose depends on a relationship. Their future depends on circumstances they can't control. And then they wonder why everything feels fragile. Here's the truth. If your life depends on anything or anyone you can lose, you're not free. Freedom isn't the absence of responsibility. Freedom is the presence of systems that protect you when people don't. Systems for income, systems for discipline, systems for habits, growth, and self-respect. Systems that don't collapse just because someone else does. When you rely on others, you live in fear. Fear of loss, fear of rejection, fear of change. But when you rely on systems you built, you gain something rare: emotional and financial sovereignty. The world becomes negotiable. Your time becomes yours again. Your choices stop being reactive and start being intentional. People think independence means doing everything alone. It doesn't. Independence means your life doesn't fall apart when someone else fails you. Build structures that serve you. Build routines that sustain you. Build foundations that don't need applause to stand strong. When you create systems, you stop surviving and start steering.
Sometimes life doesn't fall apart to punish you. It falls apart to expose what was never solid to begin with. I learned this when everything in my life collapsed at the same time. My job, my relationship, the people I trusted. All the stability I thought I had evaporated in one brutal month. At first, it felt like failure, like the universe was taking everything from me. But then I realized something important. Nothing was taken. It was simply revealed. My job wasn't security. It was dependency. My relationship wasn't support. It was distraction. My circle wasn't loyalty. It was convenience. I hadn't built a life. I had borrowed one. Most people confuse ruthlessness with cruelty. They think being ruthless means being cold, heartless, unforgiving. But that's not strategy. That's ego. Strategic ruthlessness is different. It's choosing your future over someone else's comfort. It's removing what drains you so you can protect what builds you. It's saying no to people you care about when their presence costs you your growth. I learned this the day I realized I was carrying someone who refused to walk. A friend I loved, but someone who fed on my energy, my time, my progress. Every conversation was a crisis. Every interaction a drain. I kept telling myself it was loyalty, but it wasn't. It was self-betrayal disguised as kindness. The moment I stepped back, I felt the guilt hit, but right behind the guilt came relief. Silence, space, clarity. That's when I understood. Not everyone who starts with you is meant to continue with you. Some people belong in your past, not your path. Some people anchor you without meaning to. Some people are chapters
you refuse to close, even though the story demands it. Strategic ruthlessness isn't about hurting others. It's about refusing to hurt yourself to keep others comfortable. Letting go is not cruelty. Keeping yourself small to hold on to someone else, that is. Every yes you give steals time from something that actually matters. Every favor you accept out of guilt drains energy you needed for your own progress. Every hour spent maintaining the wrong relationships delays the life you're trying to build. People think success is about talent. It's not. It's about allocation, where your time goes, your focus goes, your future goes. Look closely at your life right now. Not at your goals, but at your calendar. Your calendar tells the truth. Who you serve, what you prioritize, and where your potential is quietly bleeding out. Here's the uncomfortable reality. You're not exhausted because your life is hard. You're exhausted because you're prioritizing things that give nothing back. The people who achieve extraordinary lives don't have more hours than you. They just refuse to spend those hours on things that don't move them forward. They disappoint others before they disappoint themselves. They choose growth over comfort. They choose long-term power over short-term approval. You have to decide who deserves your energy and who merely requests it. Your future depends on that distinction. Because your time is the most expensive thing you own, and most of the world will happily let you waste it. Start choosing like your life depends on it. Because it does. You're not behind. You're not broken. You're not late. The world just taught you to measure yourself with the wrong metrics. They convinced you that wanting more made you ungrateful, that setting boundaries made you difficult, that ambition made you arrogant. They taught you to shrink because your full size would make them uncomfortable. But here's the truth you've avoided. There was never anything wrong with you. You were just surrounded by people who benefited from your doubt. They needed you soft so they could feel strong. They needed you quiet so they could feel loud. They needed you predictable so they never had to confront their own mediocrity. But you're starting to see it now, piece by piece, shift by shift. You're waking up to the reality that everything you've wanted to become was already inside you, buried under expectations, guilt, and noise that never belonged to you. The moment you stop apologizing for your potential, you start becoming someone different, someone heavier, someone sharper, someone undeniable. And you don't need validation for that. You don't need applause. You don't need permission. You only need one thing: the courage to stop dimming a light that was never meant to be small.
People think power is loud. They think it's aggressive, dominant, attention-seeking. But real power doesn't perform. Real power doesn't need an audience. Real power is felt before it's seen. You've met people like that. They walk into a room and the energy shifts, not because they're dramatic or charismatic, but because they carry themselves with a calm certainty that tells you this person no longer argues with their identity. That's what you're becoming. Not someone new, but someone uncovered. Someone who no longer wastes time proving, defending, or convincing. Someone who doesn't chase approval because they no longer need it for fuel. Someone whose presence says what their words don't have to. This transformation isn't loud.
It's not chaotic. It's not a performance. It's a quiet rearranging of your inner world. Your standards rise, your boundaries sharpen, your tolerance shrinks, your vision clears, and the world will notice. Not because you tell them, but because they feel it. People will treat you differently. Doors will open differently. Opportunities will approach differently. Not because you became louder, but because you became aligned. You don't have to announce your power. You just have to embody it. Most people spend their lives searching for something outside themselves. A sign, a mentor, a miracle, a moment that will finally give them permission to start becoming who they were always meant to be. But here's the truth you've avoided. You already have every tool you need. The strength you admire in others, it's already inside you, buried under hesitation. The confidence you think you lack, it's waiting behind one decisive action. The potential you pretend not to see, it's been knocking on the inside of your chest for years. You weren't missing capability, you were missing direction. You were missing belief. You were missing the moment you finally say, enough. This version of me is done. And the more you grow, the more you realize something powerful. Most of the limitations you thought were real were nothing but inherited fears. Fears passed down by people who stopped growing long before you were born. The life you want isn't waiting for luck, it's waiting for alignment. For you to move like someone who finally understands their worth, their weight, their potential. Your transformation isn't about adding anything new, it's about removing everything that taught you to doubt yourself. You are not becoming stronger, you are uncovering the strength that was always there.
This is the moment everything changes. Not because the world shifts, but because you do. Because you're finally done waiting for someone else to open a door you were meant to walk through on your own. Because you're done shrinking to fit places you've outgrown. Because you're done mistaking permission for destiny. Here's the truth. Your life is about to look different because you're about to move differently. You won't explain yourself the same way. You won't hesitate the same way. You won't let the wrong people drain you the same way. You won't tolerate disrespect the same way. Something internal has snapped. A line you once tiptoed around has now turned into a boundary you refuse to cross again. This is the point where most people stop. But you're not most people. If you were, you wouldn't still be here. You know exactly what you feel rising inside you. Clarity, direction, intensity, and a quiet readiness that doesn't need applause to be real. So here's your final instruction. Stop asking, start choosing. If you're done being controlled, hit like. If you're ready to become untouchable, subscribe. You don't need permission anymore. You never did. Take what's yours.